From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, it's Casino Secrets with Vegas Vic and Ziggy.
Hello, I'm Vegas Vic. Welcome to the continuation of our recent Periscope broadcast.
So you said something else. All right, yes. Speaking of previous occupations and stuff like that. Okay, well, if you're going to take a drink, I'll wait before asking the question. And damn it, hold the darn book up once in a while if you want to sell one.
Okay, Ziggy, you have another question about this fabulous book, Gambling Legends, True Stories and Amazing Facts.
Trivia! What was Doc Holliday's actual real job?
Doc Holliday, the famous gambler from the Old West, and pictured in many motion pictures that I liked about, he was a dentist. And by all accounts, he was a very good dentist. And the reason why he left dentistry is because he suffered what's called consumption, which we today know as tuberculosis. And his patients didn't like him coughing on them as he was fixing their teeth, because it's a highly contagious disease. And so that's how he had to give up his practice and move west. But he was such a good dentist that the crown that he put into the mouth of a 17-year-old girl stayed in place and lasted until she died at the age of 107. So by all accounts, he was an excellent dentist, and he became a notorious gambler and shootist, gunfighter. And he eventually died of tuberculosis in a Colorado rest home at age 35, so weak that he couldn't even lift a playing card.
But they could find all that out by reading your book.
Okay, all of the details, as Ziggy says, here in my book, Gambling Legends, True Stories, and Amazing Facts.
Tell us the story of Mr. Briefcase.
Oh yes, Mr. Briefcase.
And also, what year did these things take place? This is important because people need to know you can't do these certain things in today's day.
Well, of course, Doc Holliday was in the 19th century, but Mr. Briefcase, we're talking about 34 years ago, when things were completely different in Las Vegas. There were no such thing as the FinCEN rules, which is the federal law that requires casinos to report transactions over $3,000 and over $10,000. Specifically over $10,000 that has to be reported directly to the federal government. At that time, people would arrive in Las Vegas with suitcases full of money. And that was perfectly okay, and nobody would, bat an eye. And that's how the expression high roller came in, because most of them would play craps. Now, Mr. Briefcase, also a craps player. Mr. Briefcase would arrive once a year at the airport, take a taxi directly downtown to Binion's. And the first time he came, he brought a briefcase with him and walked up to the craps table, placed the briefcase on the pass line, and said, $1 million on the come-out roll. And of course, at the time, they opened up the briefcase, and sure enough, there was $1 million, and they had to call the boss, the owner, Benny Binion, who came over, take a look at it, and said, take the bet. So Mr. Briefcase took the bet, got the dice, rolled them, he rolled a 7, they paid him $1 million, he put it in his briefcase, took a taxi to the airport, and left. And he did that a couple of times. Unfortunately for Mr. Briefcase, what happened on the next trip is that he again arrived at Binion's and placed his briefcase of $1 million on the pass line, but this time he lost. The next year he came by, he did the same thing again, and he lost. The third year he came by with the same thing again, and he lost. So this time he said, thank you very much. He went up to his room, and a short while later jumped off the roof at Binion's Horseshoe, and that was the end of Mr. Briefcase. It turned out that Mr. Briefcase was embezzling money from his company, and when he could no longer cover his embezzlement with his winnings, he did what people do and took a swan dive off the roof. And that was the end of him. Okay, Ziggy, what have we got?
You kind of gave the answer in the last story. Who created the World Series of Poker originally?
Yes, World Series of Poker was created by most accounts by Benny Binion in conjunction with Corky McCorkerdale. The story goes like this. Back in 1948, famed gambler Nick the Greek Dandalus and famous poker player Johnny Moss wanted to have a heads-up match in poker. Now, at that time, poker was not as popular as it is today, but these were well-known gamblers that played for millions and millions of dollars. And so they wanted to find a club where to do it, and Benny Binion's Horseshoe Club in downtown Las Vegas was the venue. Now, Benny agreed on the condition that he could put the poker table in the window of his casino so people could watch these people play. And that was the beginning. There's the story about how this is in my book. See, Ziggy? I said, it's in my book, Gambling Legends, True Stories and Amazing Facts.
Where can they buy the book?
Yeah, you got morecasinodeals.com. Okay, Ziggy, so to cut a long story short, back in 1968 now, this was in 48, this is 20 years later, there was what's called the Great Cowboys Roundup in Reno, organized by Corky McCorkadale and some of the other poker players, Amarillo, Slim Preston, Doyle Brunson, Jack Treetop Strauss, and all the other famous players, many of whom I mentioned in my book, Gambling Legends, True Story. Okay, I made Ziggy happy. Okay, and morecasinodeals.com, he's even happier now. And at that time, they played all sorts of forms of poker games, and the idea of creating a world championship of poker was born at that time. Fast forward a few years later, and in 1971, Benny Binion and Johnny Moss and some of these other poker players decided that it would be a great idea to have a contest of all the world's best poker players. And they all descended on Binion's Horseshoe in downtown Las Vegas, and they played every kind of different poker game that they could imagine that they knew to play. At the end, the buy-in was $10,000 minimum, and at the end, of course, a winner was declared, but it was by vote. All of the gamblers got together and they voted Johnny Moss as the best poker player, and he therefore became the first World Series of Poker champion. Now, they had, it was so popular that in 1972, they did the same thing again, and once again, Johnny Moss became the winner, but this time it was a contest where they actually had to win the World Series itself by having a main event with a $10,000 buy-in in the game of Texas Hold'em. And that is how the World Series of Poker that we know today began and continues to this day.
Hello, Vegas Vic back again. Thank you very much for watching our program. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It's very easy. Just click the subscribe button on your screen. It only takes a second, and then you'll be notified every time we post a video. You can also follow me on Twitter. My handle is @GamingAuthor. So until next time, I'll see you soon. So long.